Well, hello everybody. Hey, it is Monday. I don't even know what time it is. What is it? 5 o'clock? Something around that time? Yeah, it's probably 4:30. Yeah, it's 4:30. Excuse me. And it is 4:30. And I just got done listening to a hangout from Antonio, which actually was going pretty well. I think Antonio actually is getting a little better in his hangouts. So he is moderating a little bit better. So props to him on that. It was interesting. But then, as you guys may have seen, there was a point where Halrious Zulu made some accusations, which, again, Antonio allowed me to address, and I think that was very nice of him. Again, I think that Antonio is getting a lot better in his moderations, and he's allowing for more dialogue, and that's good. That's good. I am actually happy that Antonio is doing that. But I said that I was going to address this and then move on, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I want to go on record by showing you guys the evidence, because we go by what evidence is what we can look at, right? And Halrious Zulu actually knew that the comments were posted, but he also knew that Nestle had deleted them because he wanted to have a private conversation, and he didn't really mean to make it public. And I get that. What he didn't realize is that I have a copy of my email. So I want to show you guys the email that was actually sent from the G+ feed. That when I asked him, did I say, great, I'm moving on, and that I didn't, really care or anything like that? And he said, no, I didn't say that. Well, let's actually look at the actual email, boys and girls, and then you guys can judge for yourself. So let's check. One sec. So, okay, hey, Drag, can you guys see that in the outside chat? Email, boys and girls, and then you guys can judge for yourself. They paused that. Can you guys see this in the outside chat? My email? Yeah, maybe not. Hello. Asking people in the live feed. Okay, you can. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so Nestle posted this stuff, and he starts talking about me hating God, and I just say, I'm agnostic, so that makes no sense. And I say, basic maths don't make sense to you. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but you enjoy your persecution for our porn. As far from me, you're not interested to worried about. He says, I am not giving this information, you idiot. Saying that we're harassing him, but whatever. And I don't care about pejoratives. Call me anything you want. But it's just so funny, the hypocrisy. I don't care about flat earth or the age of your earth. That's not my ministry. It means that's not my salvation. And what did I say? Great. Moving on. I'd rather discuss topics with people who are actually not completely ignorant of them. Cheers. I have no other comment till Nestle says something, and they're talking, and basically Nestle said, I should have made this post private between the two of us, Zulu. Sorry, guys, but I would delete the comments of others except for Zulu because I want to talk to him personally. And I said to him, go nuts. I've already moved on. This is well before he went into that hangout and told Antonio and the rest of them that I was harassing him, that I was trying to get in a conversation. There is nothing in this entire email that threads with me ever wanting to have a conversation with him. Nothing. Now, in fact, I said, you have a persecution porn. Great. Moving on. I'm done. Which is exactly what I told them in the hangout. So this is clear evidence that Halrious is lying. I hope Antonio takes a look at this, because again, they just believe these people blindly. At least I have the evidence to back up what exactly happened. I had no interest in talking to him since yesterday he went into like Hogtie's thing and he mischaracterized everything. And I just realized that he's just a kid, and he's just brainwashed and ignorant. And I really have no interest in talking to him. So I have not talked to him since yesterday. And this whole bullshit about, I've been sending him emails all day is completely ludicrous. Nestle was trying to have a conversation with him. That was it. And I just said, he's not interested. Fine, whatever. I'm moving on. And great. I've already moved on. There's no other message from me after that until he starts saying stuff in his hangout. And I said, he's lying. I told him that I was moving on. And then he told them in that hangout that I did not say that. So anyways, want the link? Does anybody want the link? Sorry. Okay, I guess not. No. But anyways, Dragna, did you watch his hangout, or Antonio's hangout? Which, by the way, I am giving him props. I think his hangout actually was going pretty well today. Much better.
What happened?
Yeah, no, he's actually had a decent hangout with Hogtie and a few other people. So.
Oh, last night?
No, just like what? I don't know, 15 minutes ago, an hour ago.
Oh, no, I guess so.
Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, Hogtie obviously has a way of going over there and having a nice civil conversation with him, and so does MP, right? And Gary was in there, but I mean, Tony let me say my peach, and of course that's That's all you can ask, right? Because I would give him the same consideration. If I think that somebody was talking about Antonio and they were doing so unfairly, I would be more than happy to give Antonio a link to have him come in and defend himself on it. I would do that with anybody. But what happened is that Halrious said that I've been trying to contact him all day today, and that I was trying to get him to hang out, talk about evolution, which is completely a lie. I had nothing to say to him. Nestle was the one doing this, not me. And yet he was going into Antonio's hangout saying that I was doing this and that I didn't take no for an answer and I was harassing him. And yet the last thing I said the last couple of times was like, I'm moving on. I don't want to talk to you. You're just, that's not a person that I want to talk to, because I know the type of personality is. It reminds me a lot of, who was that other guy? Ernie Deaver, right? He reminded me a lot of Ernie Deaver. Same kind of persecution porn, the same kind of, oh, they're picking on me. I don't have any time for people like that. If somebody thinks that they're being harassed or persecuted or being picked on, you know what? They don't have enough cojones to be anywhere near my channel or anywhere near the community, right? I don't want to deal with them. Fuck them. You know, grab your cojones and have some balls, but don't sit there and say you're being persecuted because people are not taking what you're spewing out and gargling with it and going, oh, this tastes great. Because we look at the evidence and we say, oh, this is completely bullshit. That doesn't mean we're persecuting you. It means we're explaining to you why you're wrong. But people like Halrious, they don't get that, right? I mean, they just thrive on this this persecution porn. That's the only way I can describe it. They just love it. So that's that in the nutshell. But can I ask real quick before I turn it over to you, Drag? Is anybody in the live feed that did watch the Hangout on Antonio's, did I present evidence vindicating myself and demonstrating conclusively exactly what I said, and that what he said that I didn't say was wrong? Because he said I never said great, moving on, or I didn't tell him I didn't want to talk to him. So if you're in the live feed, let me know if you think that I present enough evidence for this. Okay. Anyways, hey, Drag. Now I'm moving on. I had to get that out of the way. Hello. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I'm trying to be quiet. My wife's taking a test, but no, I didn't know this was going on. I thought I would subscribe to Hog Tie Champ, but I guess not. But anyway.
This is cool. Yeah, Tyler Durden says, and I want to get this on record, Tyler Durden live feed says, I participated in the thread as well and will verify everything you said. Thank you. And that means a lot. I mean, again, I mean, when I tell somebody that they're absolute lying, I'm going to give reasons why they're lying. And how was lying. He was absolutely lying. And of course, Tony's going to believe him. Although I'm going to say on this particular thing, I don't know whether Antonio did or not. He didn't actually say he did. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And maybe Antonio just was like, one side, the other side. But I will say this, if Tony wants to know the truth, all he does is has to watch the first 5 minutes of this video. Right? That's it. I mean, if Tonio Fletcher likes honesty, all he's got to do is watch the first 5 minutes of this video. That's it. Like I said, I gave him props for having a decent hangout. So it does happen. So what do you study? Mitochondrial inheritance?
No, I'm going over some, actually, I'll just show you. Genetics homework, going over linkage problems specifically. Because you have, here's the prompt right here. I don't know if you can read that there. And then here's like the body of it. So you're given a prompt. The following X-linked recessive traits are found in fruit flies. Vermilion eyes are recessive to red eyes. Miniature wings are recessive to long wings. And sable bodies are recessive to gray body. A cross was made between the wild type males with red eyes, long wings, and gray bodies to females with vermilion eyes, miniature wings, and sable bodies. The heterozygous females from this cross, which had red eyes, long wings, and gray bodies, were then crossed with males with vermilion eyes, yada, yada, yada. And here's what they got. So you get like 13,000 of one variety, 1,300, 190, 42, 48, 2, 1. So you tasked with two things. Calculate the map distance between the three genes for eyes, wings, and the body, and then determine if there is a positive interference occurring. Now, the issue that I'm having is how to set this up, because this is a bit different than doing physics problems where you have probably 3 or 4 formula, and you have a slight variation of the formula, but really what you're looking for.
Yeah, you know what you have and you try to get.
Yeah, you can easily
go on. This presupposes evolutionary theory, so you're presupposing evolutionary theory. So
this is
wrong.
presupposing a lot of shit, but then you throw it out the fucking window because this is Mendelian exceptions. So,
oh, that makes it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is, well, that's why you have.
This is something that he didn't probably know much about then.
Well, no, because he had genes. When he had the output for the offspring, they were on different genes. These you have to determine which ones are linked. So to do that is, I want to say, like an 8-step process, which if you want to see what the answer actually looks like, here it is. That this is what the answer, the prompt explains why, and I've bolded, double crossover occurs at the lowest frequency, and then this first part I got, like how to set it up, but then to go about calculating the distances, how to determine which, because you have 8 different varieties, eight different types of offspring, but then you're going to pair them up in groups of 2, so you'll have 4 groups of 2 to determine the distance between the eye color and the wing length, and then the wing length to the body color is the next set. And then from that, you will find out each map unit distance from the eye to the wing and the wing to the body. And then from there, here's I guess a graphical illustration of what that means as far as how it looks on the gene. And then you're going to do a little bit of math here. Hold on to your fucking pants, C. Brown. You can find the coefficient here, which is the observed number of double crossovers over the expected.
It's a ratio, not a coefficient.
Yeah,
why is it called coefficient?
I'm not sure. They call it it's something coefficient or coefficient something, but that's supposedly what the C means. But it is a ratio of what that is, and then you multiply that times your.
You need hexapod Avenger.
Yeah, actually, this is spelled wrong.
This is like right up his alley. Where's he been, anyways?
I don't know. I've been going to Rational Brown and CRISPR with some of these, but
yeah. They still remember this? How to do this stuff? Like,
well, really? Yeah, you're given. Yeah, well, yeah, they know. They know. Trust me. But yeah, just trying to remember the order in which I do all this is probably the hardest part, because what you end up doing is very, very simple math, but trying to find out how to do it in the correct order in order to get the correct number of map units to correspond with the single crossovers and the double crossovers. Because you would think you would do single crossover events, then double crossovers, but you have to determine the double crossovers in order to find that initial distance between the first 2 traits, such as the eye color and the wings. So it's just flipping back and forth and just having practice at it. But I've walked through it. And
now you said these are on the same chromosome, or these are on different chromosomes?
This is just one gene right here that I have highlighted, and excuse me, these are 3 genes on the same chromosome, and they're linked. Excuse me. So you have to find out the distance.
So the greater MU, the greater the gene's distance between them on the same chromosome.
Essentially, yeah. The map unit is just, and I'm going to steal a vehiculism. It's somewhat arbitrary, but it tells you, because you can make a prediction. You know that right here where you see this V, which means this is for eye. This V represents the eye. This M is for the wings, and then this S is for the body. So I know that there's going to be a greater chance of crossover between the V and the S on another chromosome, as opposed to the V and the M. And
the further they're away, the higher chances of crossing over. Would it be the other way around?
No, it's I am not at liberty to try and explain why. It's for what I understand is
that way. Intelligent design.
That's just the phenomenon.
It's intelligently designed.
Yeah, and like I said, CRISPR and Rational Mind would be better, and Sam or Fiona.
I don't know why I really never had an interest. I mean, I obviously I took like the genetic aspect in biology. We had Punnett squares and all that crap, and we had to do ours were the things were flowers like red, white, pink. We didn't do anything with flies that I can remember, but I definitely remember the flowers and peas, whether they're shriveled or smooth or And I really didn't have much of an interest in it. And I don't think I really do. I'm actually, when it comes to biology, I'm actually more fascinated just of the actual DNA itself rather than the Mendelian inheritance type things. I mean, it's fascinating, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I could actually like sit through a course in it. You can, obviously, you have to. You want to press people.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a joke, by the way, people. That's a joke.
it just it's a process. I mean, it took me a little while to get on board with the physics, but if you understand the math, that's not the issue. It's just memorizing the fucking formulas is probably the most difficult part,
Oh,
because I am one of those people who has to sit there, try and work with the formula and write it out several times on each page of my homework. And then as soon as I get a test, I turn it over and I write the formula down and then go do the test.
I wish I could have kept all the formulas that we had memorized in nuke school. There was well over 100 formulas.
Oh, easily.
It was
Easily.
well over, and variations of a variation, right? And you know, it's one of those things. Is you said, here's what you're given. Here's what I need to find out. What formula do I gets me there, and how do I use these other formulas to get to that formula? That's basically the primarily thing of physics, right?
Yeah, and
I mean,
that's it's fairly straightforward.
Could be broken down that way, but getting there, it's like, fuck, what formula do I use for this? Let me rearrange it, get the right variable. Okay, this variable's in this formula, so I got to rearrange this one. And
Yeah, I mean that part is kind of fun for me. Like I like trying to figure that out. But this shit can be infuriating because it's something so simple. And luckily she gave us the answers. And I'm not gonna pull a C Brown and just try and fucking Google all the answers. I'll actually try first and then see where I
well,
fucked
this
up.
one doesn't take, this one you don't have to worry about it. Not like in the other one you had. Was it you didn't take into account the fact that certain combinations weren't viable and they would die? Is that the problem C Brown had too? Because he took it right off the internet.
Yeah, well, he went to Google and he went to Yahoo Answers, and Yahoo Answers gave him some weird shit that had some like polynomial expansion that I had never seen before in my life that was really fucked up. And then he posted it almost word for word, and then Rational Mind, I think, went over it, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for grading my work. I appreciate it. You know, I appreciate the feedback." Like and I'm like, this dude has no shame, like at all. He has no fucking
That's it.
shame.
They really don't, man. They think they can get away with this stuff. It's like really okay. Come on, seriously, come on.
Well, and that's why I found it funny that who was it last night? Fucking GCOM was like, "Oh well, you know, anyway, I can go to, you know, you can just go to class. That's for corporate America." I'm like, I'm studying this because my family has been plagued with the malady that is fucking cancer. It has killed so many of my family members, and it's almost taken my own mother. So rather than waiting for other people to do the work, I have a vested interest in it,
So you're
and
gonna
because
focus on
my own
oncology?
interest. Huh?
You're focusing on oncology?
Yeah, as I feel compelled to, but part of that, part of my personal goal is to eventually work with stem cells and to
That's
try,
cool.
you know, unlock the potential to stem cells, because you know, I think it's really, I think that's our future, and I think it was held back during the Bush era, and I think we could have been so much more further in our research had he not put the ban on embryonic stem cell research.
I agree.
So, you know, I just
You know what? That was just out of pure ignorance, I think.
it was, and because when you hear when people hear embryonic stem cells, and I'm telling you this because this is what people have fucking told me, that they think that we were like kidnapping embryo or wresting embryos from mothers and like chopping them up in a machine and doing experiments on them. And I was kind of just aghast at how like people actually thought that was going on. Like people really believe that, and it's like, no, if you have fetal tissue from a miscarriage or an abortion, where do you think that goes? That goes to the same place your fucking bedpan material goes, in the incinerator, where other fucking you know, body fluids and tissues go. It gets burned, because we have this thing called you know, bloodborne pathogens, where you can't let that shit just sit around. And so rather than having this tissue, you know, get destroyed, we have an opportunity. We have the ability to take what could have been life to help further our understanding of life. And I had to explain that to a coworker of mine because she had no clue. And I really don't expect too many people to, know the intimacies of how, how biomedical research actually works. But I think there is such a degree of scientific ignorance in America that people just go based on what is intuitive. And you mix that in with, some of G consciousness, conspiracy theories, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And he's not alone in the crazy shit that he thinks. By far, I have
No.
people in my family whose mothers have died of cancer that believe this stupid shit.
No, and I agree, and that's one of the. I mean, I don't like talking to G Conscious. I think he's dangerous. I think he spews not just incorrect information, but rhetoric that is dangerous, much in the way of like Grim V. Right? These people are so ignorant that they literally can cause the death of people. That I will not facilitate. That will I not have on my program. That's just something that I just wanted to avoid. So I don't want to have conversations with these kind of people. I really don't, at least not on my channel. On other channels, I will, because, I will try to refute them as best as I can, but I'm by far the person who should be refuting them when they start spewing these things about like, oh, cannabis oil cures cancer and natural news is the best source of information and that kind of crap.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But it's scary because it can kill people. These people are dangerously, psychotically stupid. I mean, being a flat earther is not going to get people killed. Being an anti-vaxxer or a person who thinks that, instead of having normal chemotherapy or radiation for cancer, if you just eat some baking soda is going to cure you, that can cause people to die. And I just find that to be disgusting that these people are so ignorant that they don't care whether people live or die based upon their own, misinformation. It's just scary. It really is. And G Conscious is one of those people. I don't like talking to him. I really don't. I think he's just completely insensitive to the fact that if he was wrong, if what he's saying is wrong, people could actually die. So, and did you hear the other day? He was in Hogtie's hangout, which by the way was a really good hangout. It was the one he did after mine. And he was saying that like these vaccines were tested on millions of people that died in order to get them to market. What evidence did he have to support that? Yeah,
he doesn't have any.
Yeah, he did say that, and we were waiting for him to bring up the whole what the Red Cross does in Africa when they're giving vaccines to children.
And he thinks that's some kind of experiment that they do.
That would be like a mass experiment right there.
Well, G Consciousness, I've caught wind of some of his. I have his real name, and I've seen him post in certain groups on Facebook, and he doesn't know that I'm in those groups because he didn't know my real name. But the owners of the group, it's a Black consciousness group. They don't care for him too much. Big surprise, right? And so I know one of the gentlemen that owns and runs one of those groups, and our friend G Consciousness is no longer a member of that group because he's been too
batshit for them.
Yeah, his rhetoric wasn't really reaching the targets that he intended. There were some call outs by him and to him, and he is no longer in there because I recently checked it. He's no longer a member. So I find it funny because I am actually Facebook friends with the owner, even though he and I don't see eye to eye on many things. He personally extended, a thanks to me for correcting some of the stuff that people like, I almost said his real name, but people like G Consciousness, put out there. And that's why you'll hear me mention when he's in the room, somebody named Raw West, and he knows exactly who that is. And so, that's my little jab at him, but yeah.
well, I gotta tell you, G's biggest problem is that he likes to say the same things 20 times and then says, "Oh, you let me finish," or "You're interrupting me." That's his shtick, right? I mean, he literally says the same thing over and over and over again, and then if he doesn't feel like he can't say it for the 15th time, he's being shut down. And I just don't have time for that kind of rhetoric. I mean, he's playing a game, and it's very silly. It's very notable. So. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really add anything to our conversation. Plus, I think he's just absolutely batshit to begin with. So, but he did challenge Hogtie to a discussion Was it Hawkeye? I think it was Was it Hawkeye? I think it was. Somebody he challenged to a debate on polonium halos, and I was like, I'd love to listen to that one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he still thinks that he got me on that when he came in and talked about it. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? You didn't even know what these things were. You had no idea about what they were. You just came in spewing about them, and you had probably never even heard about it till 5 minutes earlier. Seriously, I mean, it's just strange, man. These people. And he gave no refutation of the presentation that I gave on polonium halos. Nothing. I mean, he didn't have any. He basically doesn't even know that Gentry gave up on that argument, right? Gentry even says, "Okay, well, God did it. Okay, that's no longer science. What's the point? You could say God did anything, but what's the point? You know, before he made a scientific claim, now he retracted the scientific claim, and he calls them singularity now, one-time events that God intervened to make it look this way. Well, okay, that's great. But that just means you can't use it as science to indicate that this was a Earth formed very quickly, which was Gentry's claim, thus trying to support a young Earth narrative. He doesn't actually say that the evidence is for a young Earth. Gentry does in his books, but he tries to avoid that directly. His actual argument was more that the evidence was supposedly that the Earth solidified very, very quickly, like a matter of seconds, right? That's what his argument was. And the only way that would be for a young Earth by extension. But anyways, I think, Durag, you were saying that you had somewhere to be or something?
I was waiting for
Sam.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I was waiting for Sam to start his off-air hangout because I think he wanted to get a audience instead of just like one person. So whenever that begins, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this really short. This is not a hangout. Hogtie said, yeah, Steve will probably have a hangout, then move on. That's exactly what I did because Hogtie is pretty good at predicting these predictions. But I want people to know in the first 5 minutes that, of course, I can make my case and show that this person really just outright lied, and that's just. But we should have a hangout one of these days. Maybe tomorrow on 2EST. Maybe I'll message JD or something. But I think we need to bring up again, and it doesn't have to be specific to anybody, but I really think we should bring up again the concept of persecution porn. I'm finding it to be much worse than before, that some people are really feeling like they're somehow being singled out or persecuted by what they're saying. And they don't seem to understand it's not because what they are saying so much is how they're saying it and how they're treating people. I mean, when you have somebody that has no education, no knowledge, telling people that they're utterly wrong and then bullshitting them, I think that people have a right to defend that. And for them to say, oh, well, they're just persecuting us because we're Christian. Now you've left the arena of actual dialogue, and you're just basically saying, well, I don't have an argument. I'm just going to say that you're persecuting me because of my religious convictions. And I think you've lost any credibility you had to even have a conversation at that point. Seriously, I think, that is the worst possible way to have a conversation. So I think persecution porn is one of the things we probably should address one of these days again, because I see it a lot more now than I ever have. And obviously just with theists. I cannot think of an atheist off the top of my head that suffers from persecution porn. Oh, you just hate me because I'm an atheist. They don't say that. They're like, I'm an atheist, and you're ignorant about it, and you may be stupid about some of the things you're saying, like claiming atheism or religion, or that I hate God. But I don't know any atheist that says, oh, well, you don't want to look at evolution because I'm an atheist, and therefore you're persecuting against me personally. Who? Can you name anybody? Drag does it all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You just love that persecution porn, right?
Just
because you're going to school just to impress people.
Yeah. Stizer is looking for a hangout. He just sent me a message.
No. Like I said, I'm not going to keep this open very long. But Suda, do you want to add anything on that? I mean, do you agree that you see a lot of persecution porn lately? Or is it my imagination is getting worse and it's always just been at this level? Maybe I'm just more aware of it.
I think you're only seeing it because you feel persecuted, Steve.
I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not seeing it more because I'm not around certain people who probably are spouting it all the time.
That might be true. No, I don't. See, I'm just the opposite. I don't suffer from persecution porn because I don't feel like I'm persecuted at all. What have I been persecuted about? What do I have to be persecuted about? I don't care if somebody accepts the fact I'm agnostic or not. I don't care if people agree with me or not. If they want to challenge me, if we want to have a dialogue, that's what I like to do. That's why I like to have discussions. I don't. The only time I think it's not persecution, but the only time I get upset, like I went off on G consciousness the other day in a hangout when he was in whose room was that? Oh my goodness, whose room was that? Anyways, he brought up the race card and he was being the most racist, visceral person you can imagine. And G conscious he could be racist, right? You've seen him pull the race card out, right?
Oh yeah.
And I went off of him and I just called him disgusting human being, a disgusting piece of shit.
Well,
not that I felt persecuted. He wasn't persecuting me because I'm white. I don't feel like that, but I mean, he's just a horrible, horrible human being.
Well, that's part of his that's part of his shtick for the conspiracy. When you hear him start talking about corporate America, and you start talking, he says they, and he's not very specific, and he won't, like, if someone's, what do you mean by they or them, and he won't answer that. That's what he's talking about. By just in case you didn't know that. Because I kind of figured that afterward, and yeah, it's kind of obvious, but that's what he's talking about. So
does G consciousness and other people who think like him not realize that in order to get a job, you have to apply? And if you stand outside the big corporate building yelling and screaming at it, you don't go inside and apply?
Well, worse than that, I think Fiona brought up the best point that I heard. Fiona said, you know what, G, you have to realize that America's not the only fucking place on earth. There's other countries out there, and for his model to even be considered to be viable, or his claims, this would have to happen in every single country on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it does.
You kind of hate to go back to it, but he has limited understanding, and so he is one of these guys that he doesn't actually understand his own limitations, and so I guess he feels as though he can walk toe to toe with someone who's been in a field for 10 years if he studied for the last 5.5. Like he is one of those. Yeah, it's really funny because it's like, well, we can all acknowledge that you can learn something to the degree of knowledge that someone else has if you are autodidactic. But if the majority of the population is not autodidactic, and there's certain things like you working in a chemistry lab, you can read about this stuff all day long, but until you actually get in to a lab and fuck up, you really don't know what to even begin to talk about. I mean, I hate to sound like it's fucking elitist punk, but it's just one of those things. You can sit down all day long and read books on carpentry, but you will never know the struggles of trying to actually put up drywall until you've gone through it, because it's a pain sometimes. And G-Man, anybody else who's done construction can tell you that. So I don't see how academic topics are any different, but he is under the impression that if he understands the etymology behind certain words that people use, that he is on par with their knowledge. But he's not. He has no concept of context or nuance. He has no clue what those words even mean. And you've seen that.
Oh yeah. He's not the only one. Betty, that Ben Vinny von Susteren person, she's in the same boat. She just throws a bunch of stuff out there that she parodies from somewhere else. And I even told her, I said, you don't even know 99% of those words in there. But have you ever had a situation? Because I've had it happen quite often. When I was growing up and in Nuke School and other places, where you think you got a handle on something, right? You're like, I kind of get this concept. And I mean, I remember distinctly. There's a concept it's funny, I had this discussion just recently with someone on reduction gears, right? Because there's a reduction gear setup that takes the RPM from the turbines, and then downgrades the speed, so your shaft's not moving at 33,000 RPM, right? Because that would be really bad. So you want a reduction system, and there's a whole process of the staging on the turbines to make all this happen, and I thought I kind of had a handle of it until I actually opened one and looked at it and went, holy shit, which only happens once a year for inspections, right? Because these things are millions of dollars. They are highly, highly controlled. You don't have any buttons. You're wearing like a white suit, paper suit. You have nothing that can fall into this system because these things are highly machined parts to get this reduction, gear finely milled, right? And you have to check it every once a year for called preventative maintenance to make sure that's not wearing down or the gears work and everything like that. But you have in your mind that you actually think you understand something, but then you actually see it and you go, shit, this is not like anything that I possibly would have envisioned, right? Even if you've seen diagrams, it's just not the same. So, I mean, I have been there exactly what you're saying, where I was like, yeah, I kind of get this. But all of a sudden you have this epiphany and you're like, now I totally freaking get it. It may take me a while sometimes. I admit that. If you only had to describe to me something 3 times, remember, for me to finally go, fuck, I actually get it now. So it happens.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God, you guys are still talking about Halrious Zulu?
Amazing, isn't it? No, you know what's funny is I just said Hawkeye made a prediction. He was spot on. We talked about it 5 minutes, and then that was done.
Yeah.
And by the way, we watched the first 5 minutes of this because that's all you need to watch.
I will, and that's what I figured would happen. You'd mention it because and this is the thing that a lot of these guys don't seem to realize, is that when there's a false accusation made in public, you should make your amends to that person and you should correct the mistake in public. I figured you would say, well, or if the person doesn't correct it, you should at least say your side, and then everybody moves on. People can judge for themselves, and they can also judge whether it's important or not. I don't think it's a terribly important issue. The reason I didn't come in to sort of throw in my 2 cents is that at the same time some of us had hung around in Antonio's hangout. I talked to Halrious Zulu to sort of give him my thoughts on it, and then Realistic Nihilist had joined to express his concern, and I agreed with his concern that apparently what had happened during that conversation partway through was Dee had made some accusations about Realistic Nihilist, and I had agreed that, yeah, Realistic Nihilist is kind of, pestering you and doing these things to ruin your hangouts and stuff. And then Realistic Nihilist came in and said, that's not what happened. And he sort of laid out that he thought it was bad that I had sort of bought into this thing, that Realistic Nihilist is going around sniping hangouts and doing things to ruin Dee's hangouts. And he kind of felt bad that was my impression of his character. So he and I talked for a bit off air about it, and I think I now have to set up a hangout where I set the record straight that I was wrong to so quickly buy into this notion that Realistic Nihilist is a hangout sniper and somebody who's just
I've known Josh for a while, and I can't see him being like that. Matter of fact, he goes out of his way to not promote that kind of stuff. He really wants to have a dialogue with DD. He actually told me, look at Steve, you can arrange it down on your channel to have a one-on-one with DD. You kind of just hang back. Having your channel, and if I get out of line or insult him or anything like that, Darwin's wins, and then you can kick me out. And he really wants to have a conversation with him, but he does not go in. He does out hangouts. Yeah,
he does. And you mentioned you've known him for some time. I've known him. I actually tried to go back and count when it was. I've known him from. I mean, even before Magic Sandwich Show, before the Lying Ghost Show. I've known him for 4 or 5 years now. But I don't know him well because he and I are in Hangouts sometimes. We've talked off air a few times, but it's like once every 6 months. To me, he's one of those guys that I'm reasonably well known. He's reasonably well known, and we kind of bump into each other once in a while. But like, I don't know. I mean, he knows I have kids because everybody knows I have kids, but he doesn't know anything about my personal life. I don't know if he has a girlfriend or gay or whatever.
You don't know who his girlfriend is?
Oh yeah, God, no.
Oh, come on.
Don't,
this is not public.
Okay.
This is not private.
Hold on. Don't say it. I do know now because he just told me a few minutes ago. But that's what I mean.
Thing there.
That's what I mean. Like I say,
talk about
I know
it
him.
Detail. You want to know what they did last night? Just go ask them.
I know. But see, I'm using that as an illustration for the point that when I say I've known him for 4 or 5 years, that's not to imply that we've been really, really close friends over 4 or 5 years. So I've heard so much description of how he's like really pursuing DD and doing all these things to be destructive to his hangouts and that sort of thing. To me, that sounded inconsistent with his character, but I don't really know him that well. And it was a mistake on my part to even sort of be open to the possibility that's what's really going on. And now that he's explained the situation to me, I think it's, he felt bad that I believed that about him, and he just wanted to explain to me that that was wrong. And now that I've talked to him, I feel bad for having even sort of like in that hangout with Antonio, kind of sort of agreeing with DD, like, yeah, those guys, you know what those guys are like, and kind of.
Well, I wonder if you do that every so often, just so you're like placating them. It's hard for me to tell because I know you maintain this. It's not really a neutrality position because you're not neutral, but you try to maintain more of a pleasant dialogue with them, and God bless you for it. And by the way, thank you, Jim, in the live feed. Jim just said another Money Steve hangout, already making my day better. That's nice to hear. Thank you. I like Jim. Jim is actually, I think, was my very first hangout, at least definitely there in the way.
Jim Jones?
No, Jim Herman.
Okay.
Way back when.
That
So,
guy.
but anyways, so I don't know if you're just trying to placate them or not, Hog Tie. And so when you say, yeah. I mean, I listened to what you said about like my hangout, and I think I agreed like with most of it. There's a little bit I thought was, but yeah, I mean, you did agree that, Hill was very, very oversensitive, but you know how I run my hangouts and you know how they are. There was some confusion, but of course you used to be expected, right? And I tried reeling people in, and I made sure that he got plenty of time to talk, and it went to downhill once G Consciousness wanted 15 minutes to say the same things 20,000 times.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I draw the line.
Well, let me say about the agreeing with people thing too, just to address that. Like, yeah, I think most people see that, and I think actually some people see it as disingenuous, which bothers me, because I actually, and you see MP does the same thing. And there's nothing disingenuous about it.
Right.
Because these conversations are always like in opposition. Here's the thing I don't do. I'm going to say the opposite. Do you remember the very famous and often referred to thing when True Empiricism was on the Magic Sandwich Show, and I was making several points about how we see increasing specialization. Lower in the fossil record, we see very generalized creatures, and then increasing specialization. And I use the example of how there's no humans below the KT boundary. And when I finished, and I said these things could have happened, with or without a god. I mean, we know that there wasn't like separate creation either with or without a god. We do know that there was this increasing complexity or increasing specialization, I should say, and that could have happened with or without God. And that was the point I was making with lots that are meandering through these little examples. And at the end of it, True Empiricism says you're 100% completely wrong about that.
I remember.
Right, and it started a huge fight. I mean, Aaron got heated about it, and now 2 years later, we're still sort of talking about what a contentious, frictious thing for True Empiricism to say. Whereas if he would have sat back a little bit and said, okay, well, you're right about this, but here's where you're wrong, Hog Tie, then he would have been able to make his point, and he would have been more effective. So what I'm saying is I don't do that. I never go to somebody and I say, you're 100% completely wrong and you're stupid. I don't do that.
Right. That you have a different style that's unique to yourself, right? And
here's my policy.
I certainly don't think it's generous. I do not think it's disingenuous, just FYI.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Here's my policy, and I'm not saying I stick with this 100%. I'm a human being. I make mistakes, but my policy is I try to agree with them as much as possible while still being honest. And I think sometimes I make the mistake of not agreeing hard enough, and sometimes I make the mistake of agreeing a little too hard and conceding something that is not entirely honest. And I don't like. I think that's a very, very rare mistake on my part. But even like today when I said, I made a speculation about what I thought happened between you and Halrious Zulu. I thought you said, well, let's do another hangout, and he said, no thanks, and then you said, oh, come on, it'll be okay. I promise I'll be good or whatever. And he said, no thanks. Then you said, okay, fine. And I'd said that on air. But now that I know that what he's referring to, and I'll just share this because I don't know if you knew this side of it. What happened was Nestle had messaged me saying, do you have a link for that guy named Halrious?
Yeah.
And I said, you can find the page yourself, but recognize that he misspelled his name. He actually spelled it this way, and I spelled the guy's name. I didn't even send him a link to the page. I just said, this is how he spells his name. And then he said, Nestle said, I want to tell him about evolution or something. And I said, well, you can try. Right, sarcastically. And he goes, no, I don't want to do a hangout with him. I want to send him something written to give him something to think about. I thought, okay, that's fine. That's your choice. You can do that. So apparently Nestle posted this message to him and made it public, saying, here are some things you can think about evolution. Steve contributed, like responding to Nestle, saying, well, he's not listening or whatever it was he said. And that turned out to be translated in Halrious Zulu's mind as, well, now Steve and Nestle are pestering me and they won't let it go, and I'm going to have to block them, and why?
Can I again, you're going to watch the first 5 minutes of this, but since we have a lot more viewers than we do, we have like 3 times the viewers when we started.
Yeah, let's rehash.
Yeah, let me show you the entire.
But only because I brought it up, not Steve.
Yeah, but thank you, Hog Tie. But here, what happened was Nestle wanted to have a conversation alone with him, so he actually deleted all the comments, right? So, and Hill knew this, right? He knew there was no way for me to verify what I said, except he forgot one thing. I have a copy of my email. So let me share this, right? Let me share this once again, present to everybody. I already did this at the beginning, but people who are just joining us. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm bad.
Okay, so let's look at actually what happened. Basically, he starts saying, and I'll go from the very beginning, so I don't mind. He said, I'm not going to let you brainwash me with your secular evolution garbage. And he starts saying like, you hate God. And I just said, I'm agnostic. That makes no sense, right? And I'm like, look, you're a theist. If you promote misinformation, you must hate God. Using your logic, you accept the 9th commandment, but though it is important to live by, so you hate God, right? And then I just said, you know what? Basic maths don't make sense to you. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but enjoy your persecution for harm. As for me, you are not that interesting to worry about. He says, I'm not giving misinformation, you idiot, right? And again, I don't mind the main calling, but don't take this moral high ground. I don't care about flat earth or age of the earth. That's not my ministry. It needs nothing to my salvation. And I right. This is before he said what he said in that hangout. I said, great, moving on. I'd rather discuss topics with people who are not completely ignorant of them. Cheers. I had never in this hangout or this thread asked him to talk about it again. This is something that was between Nestlig and him. And I said, after this, I said, right down at the bottom, Nestlig said, I should have made this post private between two of us, Zulu. Sorry, guys, but I would delete the comments of others except for Zulu and my Zulu because I want to talk to him personally. And I said, go nuts. I've already moved on.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm going to guess too that the reason Nestlig did that was because he didn't know. Just this weekend, I had somebody ask me, "How do you send somebody a message and not make it public on G+ under this new format?"
Fine.
We've all struggled with it, so that's probably what started it.
Yeah.
But I want to let me say the thing about where I'll agree with somebody, and then I realize afterwards, well, I was probably over agreeing, because when he said that you were pestering him to do a hangout, I immediately conceded, well, what probably happened was Steve said, "Oh, come on, let's do one. Oh, come on." And then you stopped. And I was agreeing that that's what happened. But now that I know it was that thread, now I realize that that is not true at all. And I should not have agreed with Zulu when he said Steve was pestering. Like he said you were pestering him to do a hangout.
Yeah, no,
I was taking the stance that you were suggesting that you would do a hangout. But now I realize you weren't even doing that.
Right, exactly.
And I shouldn't have even agreed that you were being persistent at all. I should never have said that you were persistent.
Well, you made a possible scenario. I don't fault
hog tie.
I don't fault you for that. You made a possible scenario based upon previous instances. You made an abductive, reasoning, and I don't think it was inappropriate to do so. I really don't. You were basically, this is probably based upon things that have happened with Steve, the way it was. But when I said that's not what happened numerous times in the live feed, that's when people just go, oh, okay, let's get the real story. Now you can see by the dialogue we had that I had broken off communication with him, and I said, I'm moving on. I'm done. I don't want to have a conversation with you. Right? It was Nestlig. What did he say in Antonio's hangout though? I did not say that I was moving on. He said I never said that. He said that I was pestering him to have a hangout, which was never happened in that thread. So he was outright lying.
Yeah,
so that's why I wanted to clarify, because you were willing to actually go, okay, what did happen? And now you see exactly what happened. And I think after I came in there, you probably said, okay, now you know.
Yeah. Well, no, it was before that. It was when you went to all caps is when I realized I think I got the wrong end of the stick here.
Well, you know me. If I tell you something's wrong here, you at least probably go, okay, maybe I need to get, I need to get the story straight, right? And am I wrong? I mean, did I not make my case that I have told him, great, I'm moving on, when he said no?
Yeah.
Say that? I mean, come on, he outright lied.
Yeah, and then the other thing I found frustrating about too is after we went off air, and I don't want to get into the details of that because I think private conversations should be kept to themselves. But
sure.
But one of the things that happened was he would repeatedly point to, well, you're defending Steve, you're defending your friend Steve, you're defending your friend Steve. I said, no, I'm saying what I saw. Now that I know which thread he's talking about, I can tell you you're mistaken about this, and of course it turns into, well, you're just saying that because you hate God. Right. Mm-hmm. He didn't literally say those words, but you know what I mean? That this is the one thing I find really, really frustrating with dealing with the radical religious people, is they're of the view that atheists will do anything to revere and protect other atheists no matter what they do. And I would agree with them that that's inappropriate conduct. I don't think people should live their lives that way.
I see that with a theist.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
I see that with a theist a lot.
That I know, that's the thing that's so weird. That's what they do. I mean, to the extent they will even protect pedophiles. And I'm not talking about the Catholic Church here. I'm talking about the evangelicals. I mean, they will they'll just defend anybody against anything, while at the same time falsely accusing atheists of the worst things, and falsely accusing atheists of defending each other for the worst things.
Wow.
Just this complete lack of self-awareness in that, and just amazing projection. But
do you think I made my argument though, Hogtie? I mean,
I do think so. I think because I think the way you approached it too was to say, look, give me a moment to actually. I won't put this out too. You came in and said, give me a moment to tell my side of the story, and then he can go ahead. You had to tell him to stop interrupting you. Let me just say what I saw, and then you can go ahead and tell your side of the story, Halrious Zulu. And then you said your thing, and then you said, okay, now he can go ahead. Like you even were open to, now he can go ahead and repeat his case, and then we should all move on. I'm done. I'm leaving. And then everybody else started talking or whatever. And then Antonio said, well, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I said, well, you should probably let the other guy talk now that Steve had his side of it. But you had already said that it was, you were, fine, let the other guy talk too. So it wasn't even like you came in and said, well, I'm going to say this and then do a mic drop and then leave. Right?
No, I mean, why would I not want him to talk? I want him to hang himself. But see, what's funny was at the time, I didn't realize I had a copy of my email. I figured the evidence was gone because Neslig had deleted the comments. And so my only recourse was, hey, ask Neslig what I said. But now that I realized, right after I left that hangout, shit, everything that I sent on G+, I keep a copy of in my Gmail. Most things. There are some things that I do directly, but most things I've sent to my email. That means I have a written account. And I did tell him, I'm, great, I'm moving on. I don't want to discuss this. You're not the person. I think he's very emotionally mature. I think he's suffered some persecution porn. I think he reminds me of Ernie Deaver. Remember him?
Oh, yes, but he doesn't remind me of Ernie Deaver at all. That's weird. In what way? Yeah, in what way?
That he just thinks everything's a persecution complex.
Oh, that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, okay, definitely. I thought you meant the emotional immaturity.
No, I think, well, there's a little. I mean, Ernie was a little emotionally immature. But I mean, I think this kid's
not like this. Yeah.
It's worse. I mean, is he really 14? I mean, is that just hyperbole, or is he a young kid? Because I have no idea.
I don't know. They were making some reference to Snickers. I didn't get the Snickers joke.
Oh.
But that's how you get 14-year-olds.
Yeah. But anyways, I want, if you can, Hogtie, next time you talk to Antonio, let him know just to watch the first 5 minutes of this if he's interested. Because, I mean, Antonio, again, I give him props. I think he had a really good debate. I thought he really had a really hangout. I thought he actually moderated fine, and I was listening to it, so it was enjoyable. That's what I like from a hangout, right? I mean, if I think his hangouts are going well and that they're enjoyable to listen to, I'm going to thumbs it up. I'm going to give it props. I'm going to say he's doing well. And then when they're shit, I'm going to say the same thing. I am fair like that. They're not.
Yeah.
They would never say that I'm going to hang out.
One thing I really like about Antonio's hangouts is when an issue comes up, he'll say, okay, let's pause the discussion. We're going to deal with this issue. Okay, what do you think? What do you think? What other people think? Okay, you know what? This is stupid. We're going to stop talking about it. Let's get back to the discussion. I like that he does both of those things. I do wish there are times that I wish he weren't dismissive. Like I know a lot of times, for example, True Empiricism can tell him, oh, well, they're just attacking me personally because something, and then he'll just agree with that. Where he doesn't realize sometimes these interpersonal issues are important because they do interfere with the dialogue. But that's sort of a separate and larger point. But I mean, I really do like how, and today when he said, that's it, we're not talking about it anymore.
And I was fine with that.
Yeah, he did it also, by the way.
I got my point across, and I was like, fine with it.
He did it also, by the way, and I respected his decision, although I had kind of disagreed with this when he said at one point, like when Didi had said when he, like Didi's got this thing where his whole shtick is about telling other people about how they just don't understand things, and let me explain it again, and Didi's just wrong about it. And that's why, I mean, I was picking on a fairly small thing about his misuse of the term.
I didn't listen to that part. I didn't know Didi was even in there. I think I must have got there late.
Oh yeah. Well, Didi is correct about this thing, and we all acknowledge this, that we can't really do inference from our limited experience to make conclusions universally. It would be the fallacy of composition to say, well, we've observed some parts and therefore concluded the whole must have the same properties. But then he'll take a single statement and he'll say, well, that's the fallacy of begging the question. And like I finally told him, I said, look, I don't mind if somebody gives the wrong fallacy name for something, as long as the point they're making is clear. I don't feel the urge to correct them. But when it's in the context of him saying, well, look at how little you know. You don't even know what begging the question is. Well, let me tell you what begging the question is. And then he gives the definition of fallacy of composition. And it's just, it's really embarrassing for you that you don't know what this is. And it's so embarrassing. You're doing so badly.
He's so antagonistic and arrogant and condescending.
Well, I think that's just that bit of projection on his side, because wasn't he homeschooled? If I'm not mistaken,
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I don't know about that, but I mean, one of the things, one of the issues to get with with a lot of people, and this is on both sides of the aisle on this one, is this they play fallacies like trump cards.
Yeah.
You know, where all of a sudden just like you'll make a statement about something, and then it'll just be like, yeah, you're straw manning. And like, okay, or you're begging the question, or you know, or whatever, and it's just
that's
like,
a contradiction.
or that's a contradiction, whatever.
Now you're contradicting yourself, and I think as soon as someone says now you're contradicting yourself, they had better follow it up with because you said this and then you said not this.
Exactly.
They need to specify
why
how you made a proposition and the negation of that same proposition.
Yeah, and it's like same thing. Yeah, like that. It's the same thing with the fallacies. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, you know what, if someone commits a fallacy, but you shouldn't even have to name what the fallacy is. You should just be like, listen, I see that you are, you know, that you're making an argument for God, but you know, when we reduce your argument right down, your very first premise is God exists. So, you know, wouldn't you consider this begging the question? And then, you know, you can lay it out like that. You can. You have to, but you explain what's going on. This idea of playing, you know, just throwing out fallacies is like as if that somehow is an argument. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's self-fallacious.
Debating and arguing is not a game of Yu-Gi-Oh.
There's a guy.
I've used Magic the Gathering as my example. And go ahead, Steve. But let me finish the anecdote Let me finish the anecdote. But
yeah, of course.
Okay, so what happened was, so I came in and I was being a little snide about this. Oh, look, you're telling everybody else they don't know what they're talking about, but you're screwing this up yourself. And I would always acknowledge your larger point is correct, that it would be fallacious, but you're naming the wrong fallacy. Then we argue about what's meant by the fallacy of begging the question, and blah, blah, blah. And at one point I said, well, here's the only reason why I mention this is because when I came in the Hangout, the first things I hear you say is you're shouting at somebody saying, you're stupid, you're stupid. And so he says, no, I didn't say that. I go, yes, you did. He goes, wow, no, what I said was you're being stupid. And listen, Hogtie, there's a big difference between telling somebody you're stupid versus you're being stupid. I'm addressing their behavior because when somebody, and I have to explain something 7 times and they're not listening, then they are being stupid. But I would not tell somebody, meanwhile, while he's saying this, I'm stepping back in the PVR function on YouTube. And I say, oh, hang on a sec, let me play this. And I play through the clip of Darwin's deity going, or DD, whatever his name is, going, you're stupid, you're stupid.
You're stupid.
Yeah. And I said, okay, before I played it, I said, okay, everyone listen. I said, everyone listen, I'm going to play the clip. And this is the part where Darwin's deity, when DD says that he told this other person, you're being stupid. So listen very carefully for him saying the words, you're being stupid. And the next thing you hear is him shouting, you're stupid, you're stupid. And I said, so DD, did you want to clarify or correct your earlier statement? And he didn't. He was having none of it, right? But then Antonio said, okay, we're not talking about this anymore. And that's an occasion. So then, okay, fine. If the moderator says we're not talking about it anymore.
That's when he tries to shut it down to protect you.
Yeah. But the reason I was mentioning that point is that sort of a thing, and it is drama, it is interpersonal stuff, but it is relevant to the conversation because we're having a conversation here. We're talking about issues that are deeply held, and when you let somebody come into a Hangout and interrupt constantly, and then as soon as somebody even gets a hint of interjecting, or even when they try to stop him from interrupting, he whines and bitches about how, well, you're interrupting me. And he's condescending and snotty and insulting and personally name calling, and then complains about personal attacks on him, that at some point as a moderator and as a brother in Christ, you have to stand up and tell that person, grow the fuck up.
EMK used to.
Yeah. Well, and look where he is now.
Well, we already decided that Darwin's is the most despicable person on the planet by far. But I was going to say, oh God, I totally lost what I was going to say though. About the whole we do know somebody that actually the whole argumentation is throwing out fallacy names, not understanding any of them, and that's independent variable John, also known as Quantum Eraser. That guy loves to throw out fallacies and doesn't understand any of them. That's his whole thing. Oh, look at Steve. He committed the fallacy here and the fallacy there. I'm like, you really don't know what these things mean, do you?
Did he message you
the
today?
other one.
Oh, he has a new video out. You didn't see it?
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's come back to it. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The other one that I wish that all apologists would lose from the repertoire is the ad hominem fallacy.
Oh, God.
Because it is like the most misunderstood fallacy out there.
I corrected him on that one yesterday, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's they misinterpret as that anything that insults them in any way is automatically an ad hominem attack. Well, it's not. An ad hominem is very specific. It's where you completely disregard the argument because you're just going to go after the person's character, or that you're going to challenge the person's character, and therefore you should disregard what their arguments are. Now, if you lay out a clear rebuttal to their argument and then follow up with, and this is why he's an idiot, that's not an ad hominem. That's an observation.
Yeah,
that's just.
I said, let me explain to you really basic. Insult, you're a moron. Ad hominem, you're wrong because you're a moron. That's really it. If you're saying you're trying to refute their argumentation by just saying something personal against their character, then you're not addressing their argument. That is the ad hominem fallacy. But if I just say you're an idiot, that's just an insult, or in your case, like you said, an observation, a matter of fact, in some cases.
Factual observation. Yeah.
Factual observation. But they don't get it. They don't care. They don't really care if they're using these things correctly or not. I mean,
and they do it all the time too. They say, well, of course that guy's saying that because he's an atheist.
Yeah. Well,
that's an ad hominem fallacy.
I learned a begging question, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I kind of think of begging the question. Because if you look all over the place, everybody seems to have different definitions for it. To me, begging the question is simply, can you form a conclusion from a single premise in a syllogism or in an argument? If you can form a conclusion from your single premise somewhere in your argument, you're begging the question.
I brought this up before.
Sorry, Didi says that's wrong. I used it tonight, and Didi says
how is that wrong?
Sorry, Sokka.
That is how I think of it, and I mean, how is that wrong?
Sorry, Sokka. That was just one of the rare occasions I was going to be quick.
Sorry, Sokka, Didi thinks that's wrong?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Talk to Sokka. Why would Didi, or why? I mean, do you agree that that's how I think of it, begging the question? Am I wrong?
No, it is, and it's and the reason why somebody like Didi will try to twist what begging the question means is because he's a presuppositional apologist. Presuppositional apologetics relies on begging the question. Essentially, the very first premise is, in their argument, would have to be God exists. And because that's how that's what they use to ground their presuppositional apologetics. God exists. That's why he explains all these other things. Therefore, conclusion, God exists. So that is like presuppositional apologetics. Whenever somebody tries to do presuppositional apologetics, they never try to reduce it down to an argument form. Because this is why they try to stretch it out. Because by definition, in the clearest form, all presuppositional apologetics engage in begging the question.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so they have to redefine begging the question and accuse you of doing it, so that the thing that they're doing is somehow not begging the question. But yeah, see, that's a very precise definition, and literally the one that I used in conversation tonight, as I have before, is, yeah, if you can derive the conclusion. And I think I also made the point too, that you want to be careful not to refer to a begging the question fallacy as an invalid argument. You can have a sound argument that suffers the begging the question fallacy, and it'll be valid, it'll be sound. So for example, my cat has 4 legs. Premise 1, my cat has 4 legs. Conclusion, my cat has 4 legs.
That's trivial.
That's trivially valid, trivially sound. Sure. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But people often, this was happening a lot with the Matt Slick thing, where people would point out that his argument was invalid, and what they mean is it's illegal, or it's not a good thing to do. But the problem is the word valid doesn't mean good arguing. It has a specific meaning about the relationship between premises and conclusion.
Yeah, I didn't watch that part. Like I said, I didn't even watch when you were talking. I didn't know Didi was in that hangout. I didn't get to till towards the very end. And again, I was listening to it, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of pretty interesting. I'm glad that there's actually people listening to this.
There's a simple way to deal with all of these people.
Booze?
Steve, is your bed made?
You know what? It's actually not bad of shape.
So I take it as a no or a yes.
It depends what you mean by made. It's got a
made, like the sheets and the.
It's an army cot, so it's not really a bed. I have
okay.
I got a blanket on the bottom, and then I got a blanket on the top. So yeah, good enough.
But is it all disheveled, like you got out of bed, or is it
no, not really
all squared away?
In the middle.
Stop being
not that bad.
All right, hog tie, is your bed made?
I try to be as accurate as possible.
Too accurate.
Is my bed made? I don't even know if I'm not a brain in a jar. No, my bed is a horrid mess right now.
You don't know if you're dreaming right now.
Oh, so your bed's not made. Okay. since you can't do something as simple as make your bed, then you don't have time to argue with people on the internet.
Checkmate.
Okay, what's your? How does this cut? What if I said yes?
That's how you do. Well, then if the bed's made, then you can argue with them. If the bed's not made, you tell them that and tell them to piss off until the bed's made.
I somehow feel like I lost this debate.
So many people will lose. Yeah, we all know they don't make their bed.
On that one, sure, yeah. Oh, speaking of debate, I got to throw that out there. Don't forget, Sunday, 26th, 3 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock Pacific, which would be 9 o'clock in Europe. Me and Ronnie are having that debate. The question is going to be, what best describes natural systems of nature, evolution, or intelligent design? And I still got some work to do. I guess later on tonight, I'll kind of finish my thing up. I guess I got to write the closer and a little bit more, but I got the book.
I'm looking forward to it. I got to say, I'm actually, especially after seeing the last thing that you were mentioning about you guys having a discussion about selecting a topic and stuff. I'm always enthused and even happy. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I interrupt
you
for a second? Yeah, I know. I owe you one this one.
At least one.
Because I just words to live by. I was thinking about whether or not I was going to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Does anyone here know who Admiral McRaven is?
No.
He was in charge of American Special Ops. I think SEALs for the longest time. And he has a great speech. You could probably look it up on YouTube because I think he gave it to some grads there at one point in time. But it's about always making your bed. If you want to change the world, make your bed. Because it's like, yeah, because you know what? It's the one thing that you can do. It's the one thing that you have control of. You start off, by your very first task of the day, you've accomplished it. And no matter what happens over the course of the day, at the end of the day, you're always going to feel good because you're coming into a made bed. It's the most important thing to do, is make your bed. Anyway, sorry. I just encourage people, look up Admiral McRaven's bed speech. It's actually, he gives it. Yeah, it's a great thing. Look it up.
Okay, what were you saying? We got the sideline there.
Oh, you're gonna have to remind me because I was listening to that. That was actually a good point. And then midway through,
you said you're cat mess. And I want people to realize I am taking a very simplistic route, and so I don't want people to think that I'm really making this huge presentation. I'm not. And the reason being is I don't think it requires a huge amount of scientific knowledge, right? I'm not going into any detail about technical things of evolution or phylogeny or cladestics like I did with Wayne. I got in a lot more detail, but this one I'm not. I'm keeping it very, very, very superficially basic because I don't think you need that much to refute the notion that intelligent design is somehow a better explanation for things. I think you could do it very, very simplistically. I mean, Saka, you're kind of the more interested party when it comes to the intelligent design debate. Do you really think it's that difficult to come up with a debate to say which is a better model, or which is a better explanation, evolution or intelligent design? Does that really take that much effort to show people which one's better?
No, I've looked into this quite a bit when people try to bring up arguments for intelligent design, and one of the main problems that intelligent design has is I think the point that you probably will bring up several times over the course of your debate is it doesn't have a predictive model. Mm-hmm. Is that you can't say whether something's intelligently designed or not. Like I can't remember which comedian it was that made the jokes about putting the amusement park right beside the sewage waste disposal when you're talking about like the human body, and it's. And that's a good reason. Like, that's a good thing. Or the you're breathing. You breathe and eat through the same hole. Is that really intelligently designed? And what does intelligent design say about these things? Is there a model that shows that? I mean, if you can propose something that would be more intelligently designed, have you therefore disproven intelligent design? I mean, how do you go about even doing this? Unless they can show. Some type of predictive model to how intelligent design actually works, there's really no argument for intelligent design. And as far as I've seen, there is actually no predictive model. All you get is analogous arguments where it's just like, hey, this kind of works like something that we've seen designed, so therefore we can infer that it is designed. Well, that's not an argument.
I'm bringing all that to the table, but that's really not the crux of where I'm going with my particular argument. It's more along the lines of, look at, if we want to say that intelligent design can be used as a model, how do we go about doing that? Right? I mean, what do we utilize to make it into a model? How do we get something to the moon using intelligent design? How does it differ from the models we actually have that actually work? Because there's nothing about intelligent design to me that is anything remotely to an explanation. Now, I mean, at least, well, I should rephrase this. It could be an explanation. Don't get me wrong. Intelligent design can be an explanation for things. I'm not saying otherwise. And it could be an explanation of how biological systems are in nature. But is it the best? That's what I'm getting on. And no, it's not the best. It doesn't really tell us a damn thing. And you could use intelligent design to cover any explanation. Hey, why did you make your bed this morning, Sokka? Well, because of intelligent design. Why did God make the sky blue? Oh, because of intelligent design. How do we explain observations of the sun rising every morning? Oh, it's intelligent design. It does nothing for us. It's completely a waste of time.
That's my early part. I'm actually really looking forward to this because I do credit Ronnie with sincerity in his position. Obviously I've expressed concerns. I continue to hold concerns.
Oh, he's been sincerely wrong about a lot of things.
There's that. Yeah, but his I don't like the way he deals with people. That's a real concern about his very dishonest way in attributing motivations to other people and to falsely accuse them of things. But when he stays off that stuff and he sticks with well, I want to talk about the issues. He is being sincere when he says those things. So I like when he is like, no, we're gonna have a moderated thing. We're gonna talk about the thing, and I'm not gonna worry about what I think about Steve or what Steve might think about me or whatever, right? So I'm looking forward to it. I think he, I
was going to be very polite.
I think he's happier doing that.
I've already, look, I'm not going to insult him. I'm not going to be base. I'm not going to bring anything personal. It's going to be strictly on the topic.
No, I think you look forward to that stuff too. I think I'm the same way. I like when I can get a good hangout where it's like, yeah, we're going to talk about this now, and not that it's going to be a big drama thing. So that's cool. I mean, TST is supposed to be kind of the lightning rod for that stuff. So, but in terms of the argument, I kind of want to then bridge it into what you're asking Sokka, and I think Sokka's answer is really good there about the nature of the argument is very sort of meta science in the way that we say, well, what would make intelligent design good science? What would make an account for something or a meaningful or useful account, or an account that matches reality? And that's really where the rubber meets the road in a discussion about something like intelligent design and what inferences can be drawn. And unfortunately, and I really want to accentuate that word, unfortunately, for the way true empiricism approaches this conversation, he wants to get into some arbitrary detail about the world around us. And he wants to talk about, how many different subunits are in some enzyme or some protein, and about how this functions or whatever else, when it doesn't serve an appropriate function for the conversation, because he could say, well, look at how the trees are able to get water up to the upper leaves. That's intelligently designed, because that is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. But instead he wants to focus in on
the minutia.
On the minutia and mentioning like the subunits and and they're named, he's got it like, what is it? Alpha,
alpha, beta, gamma, the shaft.
Alpha, beta. He always says alpha, beta.
Yeah, alpha, beta. There's the alpha, beta, and the what is it? The F1.
Yeah, but I had to pause because
C and the G. It's C and gamma, the C ring and gamma, and the F.
And he used to say F0, which is there is no F0. Yeah. So it's stuff like that where he.
But see, I'm not going to talk about that stuff. I mean, he wants to talk about RPA as he can, but I'm not going to do that much. Why would I?
The function that it does serve, like when he says, well, to really understand intelligent design and really understand the intelligent design argument, you have to know these details about ATP synthase, for example. The only function that it does serve is that afterwards, if the person says, you know what, I've never really looked at the diagram, I kind of get what ATP synthase does, but I don't really care what the subunits are, then he can say, well, you're just not prepared to discuss intelligent design. Right? It gives him an excuse to say that, yeah, you're not.
What does it matter?
It doesn't matter, right?
Why do you have to care about the FO and the F1? What does it make a difference to the concept of intelligent design? It makes no difference to the argument itself. And by the way, he does say a lot of weird things. I mean, like this recently, I had made a video and I kept pointing out, and I think you noted this, Hogtie. Do you keep noted when he keeps on saying out that the ATP synthase literally exists in the mitochondrial matrix, not in the inner mitochondrial membrane? And he's been corrected on that, but he still likes to say that, and I don't know why he does that, even though the F1 portion does extend into the mitochondrial matrix. That's not where the ATP synthase.
It's embedded, yeah.
It's embedded,
yeah. It's okay. I mean, I'll say that Is that an important distinction? I mean, yeah, he's wrong, but is it an important distinction? And I'm going to say yes,
No,
it
but
is
it's
an important
weird.
distinction.
It's weird.
But is it important to this conversation? Not at all. Right? Because that's what I'm saying. You don't even have to talk about those details, because his argument could be made by saying, look at the trees. Look at how flowers have special patterns so they give off ultraviolet light that appeals to certain insects. I mean, that's intelligently designed, right? He could make the argument about anything. Instead, we get bogged down in these details, not even about biochemistry, but about one specific thing that is described in like 5 pages of any, intermediate level biochemistry textbook. So, I mean, I'm not going to explain it because I know you know what the matrix is and what a membrane is and what a membrane-bound protein
and I know what
is.
transmembrane proteins are, and
Transmembrane.
But here's
so
the
I'm not going to explain it because I know you understand it, and I really don't think it's relevant for this discussion. But he wants to get into those sorts of discussions, and he's simply wrong about it, and I just don't even care enough to correct him about it.
But here's the thing too, is that when he does go down these routes of just regurgitating stuff that he's read in a chemistry or a biology textbook, what's the reply to that? It's just like, it's simply this, like, yeah, I know, cool, nature's awesome, nature's really cool, huh? And then when yeah, exactly, like nature's nifty, and then his reply is from there is usually this, like, well, no, it's impossible. It's like, okay, great, because that's the part that needs an argument. Tell me how something like this is impossible to form naturally. Like, it's great that ATP synthase requires all of these different moving parts and all these other things, and you think that it's irreducibly complex or what. Oh my goodness!
What are you doing?
My 1 second.
It's the ice machine, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what's weird, I love that Sokka made that point, because what's weird about it is it actually cuts both ways. Is that if he says, well, look at this molecule, look at this protein, look at this enzyme, look at how amazing this is.
Okay. It's not an ice machine.
It's Lego.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he decided to tip that entire thing over.
Oh, okay. It sounded like an ice machine, but you're right.
You're forgiven. You're forgiven.
I got to say this. When everybody else was saying it sounds like an ice machine, in my head I went, that sounds like Duplo. No, wait, Mega Blocks. Yeah. Have you stepped on it yet? Sokka, you have to step on the Mega Blocks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, several times.
You have an older kid. Okay, so you know this already. Don't ever give you don't wait until your kid's like 4 and then give them Lego. You have to train up your own feet. First by stepping on the Mega Blocks, then you work your way up to the Duplo, then you work your way up to the Lego.
And your kids learn very interesting new words of the vocabulary every time you do step on them, right?
Yeah.
Daddy, what does shit mean?
Yeah.
But what's really great is that he dumped this entire thing out, made this entire mess, just so that he can get access to that. I don't even know what that is. It's a part of something.
It's important.
But it's important. That was it. That was worth it. Like, he doesn't care about anything that he just did here. No. What's really important is that purple thing that he's already forgotten.
Yeah, it's not that important anymore. It's lost its importance. But here's the thing. Okay.
Go ahead. But I do want to make my point about the cuts both ways thing.
Yeah, make a point because I want to
go ahead. Mine will be longer. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. Well, I will say we won't ruin Steve's hangout with this, but the next time we have a primarily Canadian hangout, we do need to talk about the Mega Blocks lawsuit that actually made it to the Supreme Court of Canada. Anyway, so Ronnie can say, "Well, look at how amazing this molecule is. Don't you get this?" And you have a choice then, depending who he's talking to. The person might not know all those details about the subunits, and they can say, "Yeah, no, I don't know about that, but I'll take your word for it that it's nifty." So what? What's your argument? Because his argument is, well, this can't happen naturally. Okay, well, now you've made that claim. Prove that it's impossible because you've made that claim. Or alternatively, the person can say, yes, I do understand it. In fact, I understand it better than you, and I agree that it's nifty, but so what?
Yeah.
Right? It takes you to the same place. It doesn't matter whether the person understands it. It just gives him that chit that he can then go back to his room and say, well, I was talking to Thaddeus about it, and he didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Jake. I meant Jake.
Yeah.
Or Red's rhetoric.
That's what he does. And here's and then what's funny is he's always like, well, Steve doesn't know anything about these things. It's like, does he watch my videos? I mean, does he think I just ever try to pull this shit out of my ass? Does he not understand that I did have biology in college? I mean, I no way could a person learn this shit on their own if they not had well, okay, I couldn't learn it on my own unless I had some exposure. In college, I mean, I learned the Krebs cycle in college. I learned glycolysis in college. I learned pyruvate and all that crap that every fucking person that studied biology has to take. I took. I just didn't really have a fondness for it. And so I didn't really remember that much, but I certainly recalled what ETC was. I certainly recalled how ATP produced, ATP synthase produced ATP from ADP and a phosphate, inorganic phosphate. That much was something I never forgot. That's pretty basic. But the specificities, sure, I didn't freaking remember. I didn't even know the specificities because it's not relevant, right? But as Hogtie's pointed out before, this has caused a dialogue, and I've had to look much more into it than I normally would have ever done before. And even Hogtie, who's had, biochem and all that crap, you probably have body go, you know what? I probably don't remember much of this, but you looked at it and you went, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I remember this. But does it change the actual conversation? That has changed where the point of the dialogue needs to end up? No, it doesn't. So how much you know about it makes no difference. And I'm going to point that out on my presentation. And this is what I want to remind you guys, two things. One, I am going to show very easily how to build DNA. I figured, okay, there's a couple of things I can talk about. One of this is just basically building up DNA. Hogtie, you heard me talk about building up DNA. It's not that complicated, right? Here's your bonds, here's your nucleotides, blah, blah, blah. And here's your DNA, right? So we can explain it using a model that works. The other point, and nobody seems to have a problem with that. The other point, though, that Rumpus seems to have an issue with, so let's see if you guys do. I am giving Ronnie literally everything in the kitchen sink. I am saying, look, it's completely possible that everything's intelligent design. Completely, plausible. Well, I can't say plausible because plausible implies that more likely, but it's completely possible that there's an intelligent designer. I'm not arguing that there isn't an intelligent designer. That's not my argument in this because that's not the topic of the debate. The debate is which is a better model, evolution or intelligent design for explaining systems in nature. So I don't care whether intelligent design is possible or impossible or that the designer is there or doesn't there. It's not affecting my argument. Now, Rumpus seems to have an issue with that. He thinks I'm giving him too much. But I'm pulling the Ned approach, the negation of P, and just saying, look at Ronnie, this is the final linchpin that you need to get to make your argument that intelligent design is a better case. And it's a huge linchpin. It is like the size of freaking Minnesota, right? But that's why I don't think giving him or capitulating that the possibility of an intelligent designer exists is a problem. I'm not arguing against intelligent design. I'm arguing which one's a better model. Does that make sense? Or you think I'm giving him too much? Because Rumpus hates the idea. Or do you guys want to talk about mega blocks? Or I can just sit here and talk to myself like I usually do.
I was pouring juice. I thought I'm trying to give. I keep cutting off.
I ran sock off. So he's like,
you? Okay.
He's like,
we did. Okay.
Your debate's gonna suck. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Okay, no, I think it's okay. I think you got to go in with a strategy, and it's got to respect the time. There is a certain logic to not conceding anything, and it's sort of like lawyer logic. Like if you're ever involved in if somebody ever sues you, you don't in your dispute note, you don't write in your dispute note, oh yeah, no, I agree that this is what happened, but I want to come in and explain why I did that. Lawyers will they say, we put the plaintiff to the proof of their claim, right? They'll deny things that are easily provable, and then sometimes even do things like they won't cede the jurisdiction of the court that they're arguing the case in, because they just don't want to have to pay. That's why they're involved in a lawsuit, and they might feel that they could win on the merits of the case, merits of their response, that is. But if they can also win by having the judge say, oh, well, wait a minute, you brought this this lawsuit out of time, it was past the statutory limit, or you brought it to a court that doesn't have jurisdiction over this matter, right? They're just as happy to have it thrown out. But that's because in litigation, you have all the time you need. Right, you write these responses and rebuttals and surrebuttals, and you have all the time to do that. But this is a very, very different function, and I think Rumpus is a little too lawyery in this regard, because these discussions serve a very different function. You're there to trot out your case, and the other guy's there to trot out his case in a way that is impactful on an audience. Right. And you want to manage your time very well. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to argue over goofy things like what a word means, or there's probably a good way of making the point that, well, for the sake of discussion, I don't really agree with that starting premise, but your argument is worse elsewhere, so I'll concede that for the sake of this discussion. Right. Thank you. That's exactly the point I'm coming from. Because look, I don't want to argue the arguments against intelligent design per se, right? I don't want to argue that
all the reasons why I think it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. I mean, it makes no sense. But I can argue that it's not possible, because that wouldn't be fair. I mean, obviously there can be an intelligent designer. He can exist. I mean, anybody who says otherwise would have a huge burden, I think, to try to say that they couldn't. So I'm perfectly fine with the possibility. But my argument is very sound when it comes to this hog tie. Is that if there was an intelligent designer, even if there was, intelligent design is still the shittiest model out there, because it's not a model. Even if there is an intelligent designer, there is no way intelligent design would ever be a better explanation for things than an actual model that we can utilize, and as Sokka pointed out, that has predictive capabilities and that it has repeatable results, right? That's what we want from a model. Just saying something was intelligent design could never, ever, in my opinion, really be that interesting of an explanation, unless you're just going for a generic one. Hey, why did you're looking at a mountain and you see faces like Mount Rushmore. What's more likely? Oh, yeah, it was intelligent design. But why? Because we have predicate from things that we've learned before, because we've seen intelligent agents do it, humans, right? So we know we have precedents for this, that this was designed by someone or something. And we can use that across the board. If we go to another alien planet and we see a sculpture of something that looks like, like a bunch of faces, like human faces, I mean, in detail, not just like the Sardonian on Mars, we could say objectively, I'm fine with that. Yes, this was intelligent design because, again, we can draw our own experiences. That's fine, but that's not the type of argumentation that Ronnie's using at all. He's trying to draw inference from things that we've never seen produced from any kind of intelligence, right? He's trying to say natural systems are designed by intelligence. That's a whole different burden, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're going to have to put some thought into how to address his the issue of argument from ignorance, because or God of the gaps, which, as I said before, God of gaps is really sort of a special application of the general idea of argument from ignorance. So we don't know something, we have an uninformative premise, and we reason to an informative premise. I don't know who knocked this plant over, therefore I conclude that my son knocked it over, right? That's not sound reasoning. And when you point out to them, well, this is a classic argument from ignorance, Ronnie has a response to that, and you have to sort of listen to his stated response, because he's really, 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 really sure that it's not an argument from ignorance.
Don't say G-Man's argument that God knows everything, therefore it's not a God of the gaps.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Fuck yeah, no, really? That's Ronnie's.
I love that. No, it's not.
Oh,
but that's worthy of pause, because that was hilarious when G-Man said that about.
Yeah.
But what it was,
G-Man, pure stupidity, but that was awesome, actually.
G-Man either read or someone had told him about an article that's on the web. I could find the link for you if you're interested, where one of these authors, I keep thinking it was William Lane Craig, but I'm actually pretty sure it wasn't, but it was one of those guys, had written this thing about asserting that the God of the gaps argument doesn't apply to the Christian God. And then, of course, G-Man misunderstands the argument. Either it was told to him incorrectly and then he misunderstood it, or told to him correctly and he misunderstood it, whatever. G-Man misunderstands. But G-Man's got it locked in his head now that somehow the Christian God is exempt from the God of the gaps argument. And then he, without understanding the article, if he even read it, has now created his own version of what the argument is. And it comes down to, well, because in the Christian worldview, God is in all the gaps, it's not God of the gaps.
Come on, that really is kind of creative.
This is literally the definition of the God of the gaps.
Well, send it to me. I like to read that, actually.
But the true empiricism's take on the God of the gaps, the argument from ignorance, is he says, well, it's not, and he's just convinced of it, and he's mistaken about this when he says it's not an argument from ignorance, because, and then he trots out the logic for inferential reasoning, which he also refers to as abduction, when what he's doing is not abduction. And further, he doesn't know what abduction is.
Well, let me give you my example. Let me tell you what I think abduction. Like, for example, you said that you see a plant knocked over, right? How about your kid is in diapers and like 6 months old or whatever, and you're upstairs and you hear a screaming baby downstairs, and you smell this weird thing of crap, right? And you're like, okay, the baby needs changing. That's an abductive argument, because you've seen things and heard, smelled things like that, and you carve a correlation, and your best explanation at the time is your baby probably needs a diaper change. But that doesn't mean it has to be true. In fact, your baby could be hungry, and it could be the dog took a shit on the floor,
Well, no, that would
That's
be
abductive reasoning.
no, that would be an example of general inference.
That's
Not
abductive
not
reasoning.
this. No, because then where's the model in there?
It doesn't have to be a model. Abductive reasoning is the best inference which you have based upon your information given at the time, based upon your past experience. That is an abductive argument.
Okay,
I guarantee it.
well, we may have a slightly different definition here then, but I mean, my understanding is that, and maybe I've got too tight or too narrow of a definition, but my understanding is that it has to be reasoning from a model. So,
No,
so for
not just having abduct. I mean, I was talking this. Well, I was kind of talking with Alex the other day, but he'd probably be more of a specific examples. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a model. I don't know why you would think it would have to be a model. Just because you're making an argument of inference based upon your previous experience for the best possible answer. If you're smelling poop and your daughter's crying or your son's crying, the best possible answer at the time is reasonable to assume that your baby needs changing. It's an inference. It's an inference based upon, again, experience.
Maybe not model, but an inference based on a theoretical account. You have to have a theoretical framework that would account for a set of phenomenon, and then when encountered with a new phenomenon where you're ignorant about something, you rely on your theoretical account. And battery low.
I think you're being very, very specific. I'm not saying
it could be.
I'm going by
the
general usage of the term.
If you're well, the thing is that I guess let me put it this way: what is the difference between a general inference versus abductive reasoning?
I think a general inference doesn't necessarily have to be the best. Right? It literally is the best possible explanation based upon inference, but inference could be any kind of explanation.
Okay, well, I'm not 1,000,000% sure about it, so I think you and me in the audience should go look it up or something. And I think I got to retrain on this because I'm not.
The example I use
the best way that I've always thought of using abductive reasoning, sorry, is that if you are a fan of Sherlock Holmes, okay, pretty much everything that he does when he walks in there and he says he notices the gray dirt at the bottom of your pants or the hair slightly disheveled or whatever, and you know how he always comes to a conclusion based on those observations there. Everything that Sherlock Holmes does is abductive reasoning. He doesn't do a lot of deductive or inductive stuff. It's all abductive based on those observations and coming to a conclusion. So when you want to think abductive, I always think Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and by the way, the example I gave is actually something I think I read somewhere a long while back. I just don't remember where it's at, but that was actually almost exactly the example that I read somewhere. Hannah had pointed out that I give a link to Antonio's Hangout in my video description. She's right. I'm putting it now, but I'm not putting the timestamp. So it's near the end.
Well, okay, I'm going to go try to, especially if
I can tell you right now, the way he uses it is completely wrong.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I feel the need to sort of freshen up my understanding about what abductive reasoning is versus, just general inferential reasoning. But notwithstanding that, my point is that when true empiricism says that his argument is sort of specifically exempted from the idea that it's an argument from ignorance, he makes the claim that, well, since we're reasoning from some things that we do know, then that's okay. That's not arguing from ignorance. The thing is, what he's not acknowledging is that what he is reasoning about is the thing that he doesn't know, right? So you can say, well, we know a lot about where turbines come from, but okay, what do you know about where molecular turbine-like things come from? And you don't know. You're ignorant about that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're reasoning from that ignorance to specific claims about that thing. Of course, you're taking into account, other things that you do know. But just because you're reasoning from some things that you do know, along with your ignorance, that doesn't make it not an argument from ignorance. If there's any ignorance in your premises, then it's an argument from ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do agree.
Yeah, so
I mean, he loves misunderstanding what the argument of ignorance is, but he still doesn't grasp that inductive argument. Still, no matter what you think it is, it has to be what we would consider to be the best explanation given the data.
So
and intelligent design is just not. I mean, it's no more of an explanation, a good explanation than basically saying, how did we get to the moon? Well, the explanation is people at NASA studied their whole lives and got us to the moon. Well, sure, that's an explanation. It was intelligently designed that we got to the moon. But does that tell you the physics involved in getting to the moon, the model?
So one of the things with the
well, I was going to say, in that case, Hogtie's right. In that case, the best explanation is the model, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But in that particular case, sure it is. The model is better explanation, right?
So one of the things that with abductive reasoning is, and I mean, I might be wrong in this one here, but abductive reasoning can give you an inference to the best possible solution out there, but it's no guarantee that the solution is necessarily true.
Correct.
For something to be necessarily true, you're going to need an inductive argument or anything like that. So again, if you go back to the Sherlock Holmes example, where he's gone through and can give abductive reasoning. I mean, anybody here that's watched Sherlock Holmes, the new BBC Sherlock Holmes, especially because I love Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever the fuck his name is. But whatever. Anyway, you can be wrong. Abductive reasoning can be wrong. There's nothing to say that just because you have an abductive argument that therefore it is necessarily the case that this has to be the solution. Think of it like Occam's razor in play, and because of that, it doesn't actually form the logically necessary arguments for something to be like, this has to be the case. There's no other possible explanation. It's an inference to a good explanation or the best explanation, but it doesn't actually mean that it is the case that this is
right.
the way it is.
Like the natural. See, we're talking about systems of nature, though. How is intelligent design ever, in any situation, the best explanation for a system of nature? We have no examples.
Well, it's not. He doesn't.
We have no. Hang on. We have no examples of prior experience of any intelligence creating any system of nature ever. Right. So that's why they're natural systems.
Mm-hmm. So he doesn't make abductive arguments. No, he doesn't make abductive arguments. He tries to frame them as abductive arguments because an abductive argument, as Hogtie has laid out there, can easily be complicated or confused, with a argument from ignorance. And because of that, so he tries to use the abductive argument there because I think he feels like it protects him in such a way. He's like, listen, this isn't inductive. This isn't an inductive, or this isn't a deductive argument, because an inductive argument wouldn't get you to certainty, and a deductive argument would actually require a sound argument. I'm just going to make an abductive argument. Well, okay, great. There's your abductive argument.
Yeah,
so what? I think it's
best model.
I think it's wrong, and the majority of people disagree with your abduction. So what does that say?
Yeah. I mean, the point being, in the long run, is that I'm going to be in this debate. Not arguing that so much. I talk a little about abductive reasoning, but I'm not going to be really arguing that intelligent design isn't the case. I'm just saying, again, if God or intelligence or whatever the hell he wants to call it existed, it's certainly not the best possible explanation for something, because like you said earlier, it gives us no predictability. Matter of fact, if you really think about it, Sokka, if intelligent design was true, it might be the worst thing possible, because at that point, and hear me out, if we had an intelligence that could actually create natural systems and change the fabric of reality and change how we view nature and science and physics and chemistry, that entity, whatever it may be, then has the power to change these things on a whim, we would assume, right? It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility if they've done it before to create these things. We don't know where they could change it at any time. So at that point, we lose all predictive capabilities, right? Unless we assume that this intelligent design doesn't want to change anything. But that's another assumption we have to make. And the problem is our parsimony is we always try to go with the things with least assumptions, right?
Yeah, I've always been curious about that when people will try to make the argument that things like the what's the term, I can't remember the term.
I can't get inside your head.
Yeah, I know.
I want to scare you in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's terrifying in there right now. Oh, for fuck's sakes! I can't believe I can't remember this time. The fact that nature doesn't change, that it's uniformity. Thank you. The uniformity of nature. They try to use the uniformity of nature as an argument towards
nature.
They fucked that one up all to hell too. It was Dita used to, at least. I don't know.
They try to use the uniformity of nature as an argument because only an unchanging God can allow for the uniformity of nature, or whatever argument they try to go down that route there. And the problem that it falls into is that, well, you then have basically ruled out the possibility of miracles.
Yeah.
By the simplest definition.
Are not a violation of laws, but they were incorporated into to begin with. I mean, you could always make the argument God created the system such that
but then
things like that to create miracles. Therefore, it's not changing anything. It's just, you know, we're unaware of these other properties that allow water to be changed into wine, right?
Right, but then you could point to specific miracles, you know, and these could be simple things like, I don't know, the resurrection of a dead body would be a violation of the uniformity of nature. The stopping of the sun in the sky, you know, would be an example of a violation there. I would say that turning water into wine, okay, yeah, I'm sure you could come up with some type of argument that they've rearranged molecules in such a way that he could turn water into wine. Okay, whatever. But it doesn't rule out the fact that there's so many other things that are claimed to be miracles. That Yeah,
it's very ad hoc. But anyways, I've already been going on for 2 hours. I didn't want to keep this open too very long, so I am going to bring this to a close if you guys don't mind. God, we had a lot of people watching. I was actually quite surprised. I want people to, if you just tuned in or if you got toward the end, just watch the first 5 minutes of this debate. God, see, I got debate on my mind for Sunday. Just watch the first 5 minutes of this hangout. That's all that really is important, except if you want to hear us like later on, we talk about cool shit. But the first 10 minutes, I think, really is the crux of what I wanted to get across. And I want people to see firsthand what it is like when somebody actually lies in our community and then plays the victim card and then plays the persecution porn card and then actually tries to tell somebody else that they're lying or they're wrong, or tries to go and tell a bunch of people misinformation, not realizing that evidence is out there. Because again, I had originally thought this evidence was destroyed because the comments were deleted. Come to find out they weren't. So anyway, so you guys make a case. Anything you want to say before we take off, Pseudo? Unless you have your say.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, you never say anything.
Is this? Are we to the topic? If you don't mind, with Halrious there. I had a very.
I say we call him Hal.
Hal. That's just. I had a very. I had a very brief.
Oh, sorry.
I had a very brief interaction with him in Hogtie's Hangout yesterday, and you know, it got to the point where it was just like I don't really know where else to go from here. This is a guy who, admittedly, will has a conclusion, and his only desire right now is to seek out the information that supports the conclusion he already has. And the confirmation bias. He's admitted that he wears that on his sleeve.
Yeah,
I don't really know where to go with somebody from there.
I just don't. Well, you don't, and I don't care to. He's not in the caliber of somebody I wanted to have a discussion with, because again, he reminds me a lot of Ernie. Now, I guess Hannah in the live feed had just said earlier that she had warned me about this guy. I don't remember that, so if that's true, Hannah, you're right, but I don't recall you specifically mentioning this guy to me before. So, but she says that she did. About this guy pulling this kinds of stunts before. But anyways, I mean, it's out there. I mean, anybody can watch this video and see that I was telling the truth, and that he went out of his way to lie about the situation, and then when confronted on it, he just hopes and hopes that his brothers in Christ will be believing of him rather than check the veracity and validity of a claim that he's making, right? Because I don't think they care. I really don't think if they label something against an atheist or an agnostic or anybody that comes to my channel, they don't care. It's like, whatever. We don't have to check if it's true or not, So I'm the opposite. I like to check my facts, and I will give anybody the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if somebody says Ronnie's lying, and and Ronnie says, "Oh, I didn't lie about this," and he has evidence that he didn't, I'm going to believe him, right? Because that's evidence. But in this particular case, the evidence was overwhelming that Hal was lying. I mean, just completely overwhelming. I mean, I said exactly what I said. I told him I didn't want to have a conversation with him. I was moving on. Just didn't really want to even bother. And there was no mention of me ever trying to have a hangout with him at all in that discussion. None. Zero.
Yeah. Oh, keep in mind, though, that Halrious Zulu does sometimes ask for evidence. He doesn't always believe every bad thing he hears about somebody. He has now 4 times asked me to go look for and send him links to any sort of evidence that G-Man used a bullhorn in a hangout.
Oh, that's easy.
Because he's skeptical about that.
Do you really think he's skeptical, or you just think that it doesn't think that it happened?
You judge.
I mean, that's something like everybody knows.
He doesn't ask anybody for evidence about the things that they're saying about you.
Just against the Christian Brothers.
Right.
Even though that's common knowledge, I don't think even all he has to do is ask G-Man. Hey, G-Man, did you use a bullhorn in hangout? Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Why do you have to go really waste your time on something? So
I told him, I said, if you don't believe it, just go ahead and ask G-Man. He'll tell you. And then he goes, I don't really want to do that because I don't know how he'll take it.
Oh God.
What does that mean? I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah, this is why I don't want to deal with these people. I have at least a caliber of people that I'll lower my threshold down to. I can tell you right now that people like G Consciousness, people like Hal, and there's a few other, Ernie when he was around, they were below the threshold. And I'm telling you, I don't even put G-Man, Ronnie, or Antonio below the threshold, to be honest with you. Any one of them, if it wasn't for that bullhorn, could always come in here. They're not below the threshold of people I want to talk to, because at least I find them interesting to talk to. And I mean that disturbingly in a convoluted way, but at least they're not so goddamn outright. Just, I don't even know the word to describe it. Emotionally immature. Right. I mean, I'm
a complete nope.
Not to even that degree that these guys are. I mean, this is strange.
I am a complete internet YouTube nobody. And those guys are beyond my below my threshold. Like
Ronnie?
Well, specifically G-Man. I mean, I don't understand why people even humor him. It's like they do it for the view. They milk. Yeah, exactly. They milk him like a lol's cow. Yeah. And it's like when is it get to the point that you're just you're picking on the special kid, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I understand that. Trust me, but I don't even know what category to put special people like G, Chronic, and Hal and those guys into. I mean, I don't know a word really aptly applies to this type of personage that they have, where they blatantly just every time they open their mouth, it's just lie after lie, and then they have the audacity to say that everybody else in the world is lying. It's the projection is just completely. It's mind-boggling to me. I don't know how to deal with these kind of people, because I've never had to experience it in my real life, right? I've never dealt with this kind of obsessive compulsive behavior of lying. It's just strange to me, but it's pervasive among these people, and I'm sure Hannah keeps reiterating that G-Man's a very nice guy outside of the web, and he probably is. I've had good conversations with G-Man off air. I used to go in his hangouts all the time. I thought they were entertaining. But he does have a tendency on air to go very far off the deep end. And that's where you go, really? This conversation is now kind of just gone to shit, right? Then that happens. So, but the other conversations, they start off as shit. It's just like G Consciousness could fuck up any hangout. I think it's a total hangout killer. And Hogtie, I give you props for wanting to have a conversation with him. And aren't you supposed to have a discussion with him on Polonium Halos? Because that's going to be scary, but I'll listen to it.
I wouldn't mind having a discussion with G Consciousness continuing on the.
He's not below your threshold.
Not yet. I've only had one interaction with him, and he went into the idea that the mind and consciousness is evidence of spirituality, and there's a brief kind of like maybe it took about 5 minutes of Hogtie's hangout where I kind of went back and forth with him on that one. And I think that could be kind of hashed out a little bit longer. Other than that, I honestly, I have no idea who this G Consciousness guy is. Apparently he's
shit.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's a total racist.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, there's no other way to describe him. He'll fully admit that. I think that he has racial tendencies, and it's just, I don't deal with those kind of people. So. But anyways, with that, guys, like I said, wait till Sunday. Hope you guys will see, think the debate's kind of interesting, and watch the first 5 minutes of this if you caught here late, first 10 minutes, and then leave comments below to let me know what you think. Let me know. And you don't have to tell me that I was right or wrong, but just let me know based upon the evidence, was Hal lying or not? And did I make my case that what I said is what I said, and he basically went into Antonio's Hangout and completely distorted it. The link to Antonio's Hangout is provided. I don't have the timestamp, but it is near the end, but maybe the last 15 minutes or so. So with that, I will bid you guys adieu, and I will see you guys on Talking Shit Tuesday tomorrow, or at least I'll be listening in. Okay? Good night.